Okay, this is our last question of this paper. It's question 5. It's one on exchange rates, so is something that students actually struggle with, but let's make sure that we're getting through it and making sure that we understand what's being asked. Okay, so it says one of the ways to compare the purchasing power of one country's currency to another country's currency is to compare the local price of common items that are available in all the countries. Okay, the average local price of a Big Mac burger and a 2-liter Coca-Cola, as well as the exchange rates, are given in table 4 in Annexure D. So now as soon as you see that, go and find your annexure, right? You'll see here's Annexure D. This is what we're going to be using to answer this question. Make sure that you have it on hand. Okay? So then it says, use Annexure D to answer the questions that follow. Please remember, each question you must start on a new page. So this is now question 5 on a new page. I'm not starting on a new page because I just want to save paper, but you must. Okay, so first it says, identify the country that has the strongest currency in comparison to the rand. Now, let's just spend a bit of time actually understanding what's going on here. Okay, so we have countries down here. We have the exchange rates, and over here it gives it in words. So like over here for Brazil, it says 1 Brazilian real, that's what it's called, the currency, equals 4,14 South African rand. Okay, then it tells you how much the Coca-Cola costs in their currency, how much a Big Mac costs in their currency, and then converting the price of the Big Mac to rands. Okay, and this is what we're going to use to compare the currencies in the different countries, right? Because we're basically saying, if we converted all of it to rands, are they similar or are they not, right? And that tells us about the purchasing power. So it's saying, how far does your money actually go? That's what purchasing power means. Okay, so we see this across. And it's done for all these countries. Let's go back to our question to make sure that we are answering what's being asked. It says, identify the country that has the strongest currency in comparison to the rand. So what you're doing is you want to look down here. And what you do is you look for the price of the Big Mac that is the highest. Okay, so now if you go down here, you should be able to see by sight that it's the UK. Right? So what do we, I mean, you may be thinking, how do you go about doing that? It's basically saying which currency, right, is when you convert it to rands has the most expensive, right? And that is what you're looking at. And you could be saying, oh, but that doesn't make sense. Another way you can do it is you can look down the exchange rates over here and you can say, okay, which one of these exchange rates, when I have one of them, gives me the least rands? Okay, so here it gives me 4,4, there it gives me 0,6. So that's our lowest so far. That's still higher, that's still higher, that's still higher, that's lower. Okay, so that's pretty low. That's higher. This is the lowest we can see, right? Number of rands. And then here, this is higher. So we know that it's this one. I think my second explanation is probably better. This one here, a little bit more nuanced. There's a couple of factors that are at play. So think about that there. The 1 rand gives you the least number of pounds, right? And then we can also see that the purchasing power of the pound is not great because it's actually also really expensive to buy a Big Mac. Okay? So just think about the nuance there. So let's go and write it down. So our answer there, 5.1, is the UK. Okay, you can write United Kingdom, but that is what I would just write there. Let's go on to the next question. It says, calculate the price in rand that you will pay for a 2-liter cola in the United States of America. Okay, so firstly what we do is we say, okay, where's the United States? It's down here at the bottom. We know that that is how much you're going to pay in US dollars, right? But what did the question ask? It said, please tell us in rand. Now, we basically want to convert this now to rand. Okay, you could be saying, oh, here's a rand value. That's not for the Coca-Cola. That is for the Big Mac, right? They're asking us for the Coca-Cola. So we know our currency, right? Our currency here for the US dollar is 1 South African rand. Or, sorry, I'm going to write it like this. 1 rand gives me $0.07. Okay. Now, we want to make this side, right? We want to make it look like this. Okay, that's what we want to do. We want to eventually get there. So what I generally do, there's many ways you can do this, but to me, this is the most intuitive way to do it. You say, firstly, let's get this to 1. Okay, because it's easy to get from 1 to 1,94. Right, that's easy enough. You just times it by 1,94. But we need to get the side to 1 first. Remember, anything divided by itself is going to give me 1, right? So that's the first thing we do there. And then that's the second thing we do to get to this price of a Coca-Cola in US dollars. Now, remember with ratios, whatever you do to the one side, you have to do to the other side, right? So we're going to do it on that side, and then we're going to take that answer and times it by 1.94. Okay, so I'm going to put this in our calculator. 1 divided by 0,07. And you don't have to put all of those in, right? All of those decimal places. Just write it like that. Okay. But keep it in your calculator so that you can get your correct answer. Because remember, we only round off at the very end. Okay. Now we're going to times this by 1,94. And there's our answer. So our answer is 27.71. Why is it 71? Because remember, with currencies, we round off to 2 decimal places. So there, because the third decimal place is below 5, we round it down, so it becomes 27.71. And that is your answer. So if you just want to write your answer out a little bit clearer so that your mark is like, yes, this person knows what's going on, then do that. Okay. So, as I said, this question is not easy, right? Like, even when I was going over it, I was like, whew, a little bit tricky, okay? So, let's just make sure that we continually are working through this and making sure that we understand. Then 5.3 says, determine the missing values, okay? So, whenever you see missing values, they're always going to ask you for them. It's like a standard thing, right? There's A and there's B, okay? So, let's look at A and see if we can figure it out. So, it says A is the price of the Big Mac. Okay, and we can see here that the Big Mac in rands is 113,96. We know that the exchange rate, excuse me, is €1, right, to 16,28 South African rands. So if we take this amount here and we divide it by 16,28, it's going to give us a number of euros. Now you could be saying, well, how do I know to divide it? I never know when to divide and when to times. Well, you should be thinking, well, if we know it's that in rands, it has to be a smaller amount in euros, because we know that there's more rands to €1 than euros to 1 rand, right? So we can see that from that basic sentence. So you know you need to divide because you need to make it smaller, okay? So let's go and write this over here. We're going to say 113.96, and we're going to divide it by 16.28, okay? If you want to do this in the same way I did the previous question, you're welcome to do that. But I also want to show you sometimes different representations so that when you're doing a question, you're like, oh, I remember Margie did it this way, or she did it this way. Okay, so there we go. The answer is €7. The sign for euro is this, or you can just say euros. Okay, so that's that. We're doing quite well. Let's make sure I'm labeling my questions correctly. I'm not labeling my questions correctly. Don't be like me, right? Let's look at the next question. It says B, the value of 1 Indian rupee in rand. Okay, so this one's a little bit trickier because they've given you these here, but they haven't told you what the exchange rate is. Now, interestingly enough, this is one of the few countries where the rand is stronger than the rupee, right? Think about it. It's 267 rupees for a Big Mac, but 56,07 rand. So we know that the rand is stronger than the rupee, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to say, we know that whenever we're doing these, if you look at the pattern here, we know that we always put the currency that is biggest first, right? So you see this is 1 Brazilian rand, and then we have the South African. Here we say South African, and then we say the Chinese, right? And then we say the Egyptian, and then we say the South African. So here it seems to kind of go in between. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go South African. So I'm going to say rands. I'm going to say 56.07, and that goes to rupees like that. Okay. What did they ask there? It says the value of 1 rupee in rand. So they want this to be 1 rupee. So we want this to be 1. Okay, that's what it's literally said to us. What is 1 rupee in rand? So we need to basically go and do what they've asked us to do. So let's go and say 267 divided by 267. That's where we get that 1 from. You're probably like, why is she doing that? I just want to show you what I'm doing. What I do to the one side, I have to do to the other side. So I'm going to say 56.07 divided by 267. And it's 0.21 rand. So we know that 1 rupee is 0.21 rand, or 21 cents, right? And that is our answer there, right? So just be careful that you're reading these questions. You can see even when I'm doing it, I'm like, what's it actually asking? And that's why I want you to get used to being uncomfortable when you first engage with a question. 5.4. Determine the simplified ratio of a Singapore price of a Big Mac burger to a cola, okay? So it says Big Mac to cola for Singapore. Here's Singapore.
A Big Mac is 8. So this is 5.4. A Big Mac is 8. Let's make sure you can see. Is 8. And the cola is 2.5. So let's go and simplify this. Okay. Remember, when it says a simplified ratio, right, it doesn't want there to be any decimals. Okay. So there's many ways we can do this. Let's see, how can we make this a whole number? Now, you could be saying, well, you could divide it by 2,5. I guess you could do that, right? But if you divide by 2,5, let's do that. Okay, if you divide by 2,5, and we do it to the other side, we see that we get like quite a weird answer, right? Divide by 2.5, we get a weird answer on that side. And there's not supposed to be any decimals, okay? So let's rather jump over here and actually multiply it up and see if we can do it a little bit easier. What if we times it by, how do I get rid of 5, right? 0,5, I want to make it to a round number, I can times by 2, and that's going to give me 5, right? Because I want to get a decimal where it's just 0.0. If I times by 2 that side, I times by 2 this side, and there's a simplified ratio, okay? No decimals, and you can't simplify this anymore. There's no number that can go into 5 and 16, right? That will make them smaller without getting into the realms of decimals. Okay, so we know that we've done what we need to. You see that as I'm going through this, it's actually not that easy, right? And that's why I'm saying it's very important that we spend time reading these questions and making sure that we know what's going on. Okay, we're almost done, right? 5.5, identify the 2 countries that have almost similar purchasing power. Now, remember, where did I say purchasing power? Where was that information? It's in this last column. So we're saying, which one of these values down here is very similar, okay? Now, if I'm going through this, I'm thinking there's 95 and there's 95. Now, you could be saying, oh, you recognize that quickly. Well, just go down and see which ones are similar. Okay, you could have started with the 92 and etc. But we can see that these are very similar. I mean, they're only like 35 cents difference, right? And that's what I want you to see. They just want you to recognize when things are similar. So what you're going to say is you're going to say the USA and Brazil. And that kind of just is all it's asking, right? So you're saying, actually, the purchasing power of these 2 countries is very similar, right? So the bang for your buck, as the saying goes, is similar in Brazil and the USA when comparing Big Macs. Okay. Let's look at 5.6 and 5.7, and then we're done. Okay. 5.6 says, define the term median. Now, the key thing with the median, and I'm sure your teacher or whoever's been teaching you this, right, has been highlighted this to you. Median, right, is linked to the middle. Now, because it's for 2 marks, you can't just say it's the middle value. Yes, it is the middle value, but it's the middle value of an ordered data set or an arranged data set. So you have to say middle value, and that's where you'll get your first mark. So say middle value, right, of an ordered, right, of an ordered data set. Okay, there's your first mark, there's your second mark. So just be very careful when you are writing to make sure that you're putting enough information. Okay, so it's basically the middle. So then it says over here, 5.7, use the prices in Rand. So now we're using just the prices in Rand for the Big Mac burger to do the following. Arrange the data in descending order. Now, descending order means that we're going down, right? If you descend the stairs, you go down the stairs. If it says ascending, it means you get bigger, right? So descending means you start with the biggest value and you go down to the smallest value. Okay, so let's go and make sure that we can do that. Okay, so where is the biggest value here? The biggest value, if I go down here, is this one and then this one. So let's write those out. I'm going to say 118.75, 113.96. What's next biggest? Let's see, I think there is a 99 here somewhere. There's a 99, 99.3. So we've done that. Then we had some 95s. There's a 95, 95.57. We know that one, 95.22. Then there is a 92.88. Then there is a 84.21. Then there is a 69.57, 62.4. Do you see how I'm just going down? I'm seeing which ones are the cheapest, 56.07. And then I have 50. Okay, and basically I went from the largest to the smallest. Okay, that is what descending order means. Now this one over here, right? 5.7.2 says calculate the mean. Another word for mean is the average, right? So we're saying what is the average price of the Big Mac across all these countries, right? So what we do there, right, is we add all of those. So we sum all of those. So we're going to put that into our calculator. Obviously don't write it the way that I've written it. Literally write all of these out. So you're going to write 118.75 plus 113.96 plus all the way plus 50, right? And then how many are there in total? This is very important. Let's go and calculate how many there are, because remember the average is the sum of all of the data points over the number of data points that there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So it's going to be over 11. This question is just a question or a lesson in calculator work, right? So please make sure that when you're typing this in, that you are typing this in correctly, because it's very easy to do it and put a little sort of a wrong decimal or something like that. I do that all the time. So let's just make sure 84.21 plus 69.57. If you're getting bored of this, you're welcome to skip ahead. 56.07, but just make sure that you're putting this in correctly. Let's see if I've done this correctly. And the answer here, let me just check that it's right according to the memo as well, is 85, right? 85.26, okay? If I have put any decimals wrong, you're welcome to correct me, right? Why is it 26? Because the third decimal place is 9, which is above 5, so I round it up, and that is my final answer. Okay, so remember this is also in Rand, so please be careful to put it in Rand, and that is us done. And that's not only us done for the question, but done for the paper as well. Good job, guys.